Welcome, Rangers faithful, to the Rink Rap Podcast right here at Forever Blueshirts. I'm Jim Cerny. Remember to always follow me at Jim Cerny on X, at Forever Blueshirts. To follow the website, of course, at Forever Blueshirts, and catch all the latest Rangers, because just because the season is ending, one more game to go, doesn't mean that our work is done. We continue, 365. It goes throughout the entire offseason as it does during the regular season with the latest Rangers news and analysis and everything you need, all things New York Rangers at Forever Blueshirts. So thanks for following us. Thanks for tuning in today. And if last week's podcast was the Johnny Brodzinski This Sucks broadcast, this week's podcast is the Calvin DeHaan is pissed off podcast. And Calvin DeHaan shouldn't be the only one that's pissed off. You should be pissed off, Ranger fans. And you know what? James Dolan, Chris Jury, Peter Laviolette, Ranger players, you should all be pissed off. Should all be pissed off that the New York Rangers were out of the playoff picture at 80 games this season. They're not making the playoffs. No fourth year in the Stanley Cup Playoffs. No run to the Eastern Conference Final again, like in 2 out of the past 3 years. Out. Not in it. And guess what? It was so avoidable. And that is why you and Dolan and Jury and Laviolette and all the players, everybody should be pissed off. Because as I talked about for months, this Eastern Conference playoff race for that final playoff spot was one of deep mediocrity. We may have a team finishing in the 8th seed in the East, the second wild card, that's going to finish with under 90 points. In fact, it probably will be that way. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. Still a game to go for the Montreal Canadiens and the Columbus Blue Jackets. But if the Canadiens lose on Wednesday night against Carolina Hurricanes, distinct possibility, if they lose in regulation, they're going to finish the season with 89 points. 89. If the Columbus Blue Jackets then win on Thursday, in their final game of the season, they'll end up with 89 points as well. They'll end up being the wild card team because of the tiebreaker. But if Montreal loses on Wednesday, Columbus loses in any fashion on Thursday, then Montreal makes the playoffs as the second wild card again with 89 points. 89. 89. That's all it took. All the Rangers had to get this season was to get to 90 or 91 points. They're in. Think about all the points they pissed away. Late leads that they kicked away. No-show efforts. No-show starts. Not able to come back from multiple goal deficits. I mean, you name it. Up and down the line. The reasons why the New York Rangers aren't in the playoffs this season. Listen, they had the roster. I know all the trades and all the garbage and all that this year. They still had the roster. They had the talent, right, to be a playoff team. They overcame a 4-15-0 stretch. Somehow they started 12-4-1. They were not that good a team the first 17 games, but they were still 12-4-1. So that bought them a little bit of wiggle room. So they survived that 4-15-0 stretch, in part because Columbus, Montreal, none of these teams, Detroit, the Islanders, Boston, none of them were good enough. Mediocrity. That's what it's all about in the Eastern Conference, for that hunt, for that second wild card spot. It's right there for the Rangers. Right there. Even up until the last month, even up until the last couple weeks of the season. Listen, I love the stories of Montreal and Columbus, and I really believe in the futures of each of these teams. So much good young talent. Yeah, look at Montreal, right? Look at that talent. Now they had Demidov, that pretty nice NHL debut the other day for him. But, Cole Hudson, Cole Caulfield, and now Jacob Fowler. I know he's not there yet, but all this great young talent being built in Montreal And they probably accelerated things a little bit this year by being in a playoff spot right now. And Columbus, none of us dreamed after the Johnny Gaudreau tragedy and trading Patrick Laine in the offseason. None of us could have imagined that Columbus would overcome all those odds, plus playing almost the entire season without their injured captain, Boone Jenner, long stretch without injured Sean Monahan, everything that they've gone through. It's the best story in the NHL this season. The most uplifting, positive story in the NHL this season is that the Blue Jackets are still in it. And a heck of a lot of great young talent there too. Adam Fantilli hit the 30-goal mark. But at the end of the day, mediocrity. These teams, the wild swings. Montreal was in a massive funk. Then they won 6 in a row. And now they can't win. They can't seal the deal in the East for that second wild card. Columbus, they were in a great spot. Then absolutely face planted for about 3 weeks. And now all of a sudden, here they come. Jack Reeves is playing the role of, Patrick Roy, Martin Brodeur. And, now they've won 5 in a row. And, and they've got Montreal sweating bullets, when they thought they had this thing wrapped up, when they dusted the Rangers. Montreal had to figure, we're in. No, here comes Columbus. They've won 5 in a row. The crazy swings for Montreal and Columbus. But that's what you get, mediocre teams, right? You have some really great moments, you have some terrible moments. But they're young teams, and they're figuring it out, and good for both of them. They're both good stories. But guess what? New York Rangers should be pissed off. If somebody wins this, gets this second wild card with 89 points, should be furious. Furious that you're not in the playoffs instead of them. Furious. And you know what? Game 81 the other night in Sunrise down in South Florida. Rangers fall behind 3-1. They score the next 4 goals. They win the game 5-3. Guess what? They hadn't done that all season. They had not won a game through the first 80 games this season when they trailed by multiple goals. Then, in the first game in 4 years, that didn't matter. Had no significance whatsoever. First one in 4 years. Insignificant game. Meaningless. Rangers rally from multiple goals down, score the final 4 and win. It was a feel-good win. It was fun to watch. Spirited comeback. Where was this? Where was this for 6 months, right? And I get it. Florida, they didn't dress, 5, 6 of their regulars or whatever. That's still Sergei Bobrovsky in goal. That's still Alexander Barkov and Sam Bennett and Sam Reinhart taking, regular shifts. The Rangers earned that one. Where was it before? Where was it in the first 80 games? Come on, man. You get 2 of those this season, right? Just be the San Jose Sharks or Chicago Blackhawks. Get a couple of those type rallies and comebacks to win. And you're in the playoffs. Or you're at least in the mix. But you're probably in a playoff spot. Not the case. Not this year. Not these New York Rangers. So yeah, you should be pissed off. Last week, it was all about, Johnny Brodzinski's quote, about this sucks. And guess what? This does suck. But now we amped it up a level because you should be pissed off. Rangers should be pissed off. We know Calvin DeHaan's pissed off. He got a few things off his chest until, Ranger PR steps in. Calvin still under contract with us. Can't say anything bad about the Rangers. Really curious to see if the Rangers make Calvin DeHaan or if DeHaan makes himself available at Breakup Day, which will either come Friday or Saturday after the Rangers close up their season Thursday at home against the Tampa Bay Lightning. And Calvin DeHaan, what did he say? He says it's effed. It's effed up. Is he talking about his own situation? Was he just talking about, as a veteran coming in, his observation of what was going on in that locker room, or the relationship between Peter Laviolette and the players? Or was he just talking out of frustration that he felt he should have played? He should have been in the mix. He shouldn't be a scratch for whatever it is, 16, 17 games in a row after playing only 3 games after being acquired from Colorado. So is it more of a personal thing? They just pissed off, right? Or does he have observations about what's fracturing that locker room? And is it partly the relationship with the coach? You know, is there more to it? You know, with the GM and management and players angry at management. Look at how you treated Barclay Goodrow and Jacob Trouba and et cetera. I don't know. I'm really curious, though, about breakup day. Who's going to say what? Who's going to be really honest? Like, who's going to take accountability? Yeah, there's so many different fascinating things that are going to come out of breakup day. One, is everybody just going to parrot the same thing? Yeah, this was disappointing, you know, yada, yada, this, that, the other. Repeat the same stuff they've been saying. I don't know. I don't know how this happens. You know, this is going to be great motivation, long off season, going to work hard, going to come back ready to go next fall. Are we going to get all those cliches? Are we going to get somebody to really dig in, shed some light onto, hey, this was the problem. This was the problem. Or somebody, does some veteran, Vinny Trocheck, maybe. He's a pretty honest guy. Is he going to step up and say, listen, I take accountability for this. I needed to be better. You know, I needed to set a better example. I needed to be a better leader. I don't know. We'll see. Igor Shesterkin. You know what? I know. And I know the advanced stats about, you know, goals saved above average and all that. Listen, he's right near the top because he was hung out to dry throughout this season. But you know what? He doesn't get a pass either. He wasn't great this season. Some great moments. Wasn't great. Jonathan Quick either. Now I get it. The defense sucked in front of them. The system, the lack of structure, you know, down the stretch here, Peter Laviolette saying one thing, Adam Fox and others are saying, you know, other things about what the issues were. You know, Laviolette basically, you know, trying to cover up for himself and Phil Housley. Not our fault. You know, we taught the system. Guys just got to communicate and play the system better. Well, that's partially true, but the system was broken all year. So you probably need to tweak things along the way. So this is my way of saying, listen, there's blame everywhere. There's blame on the coach, the coaching staff, the roster management by the GM, and absolutely on the players. And you know, you saw it right there, you know, this past week, those just terrible defensive breakdowns, you know, cost them that game in Philadelphia, you know, against Philadelphia. You score 5 goals. You got to beat the Philadelphia Flyers. You score 5 goals. You give up 8. I know there were empty netters and all that, but you give up 8. Come on. And blow out the Islanders 9-2. Great. Feel good. You know, Brett Berard got a couple goals. That was fun. Igor stood on his head. Shouldn't have to stand on your head when you're winning, you know, when you're blowing the other team out, but he did. 4-0 first period lead. At second period, he's under siege. The defensive breakdowns by the Rangers. You know, that's another one that could have been 9-6, you know, or 7-6, 8-6, 8-5, you know, whatever. It's a massive, wild high score. And then, of course, in Carolina, you know, the defensive breakdowns. The Rangers, how many times they just give up the middle of the ice this season? That needs to be fixed. All of that needs to be fixed. Who's going to take accountability for it? We'll start to find that out at Breakup Day. And we'll be covering Breakup Day, soup to nuts, top to bottom, everything that's said. We'll be all over it with news stories, analysis, everything over at Forever Blueshirts. So make sure you follow us, you know, not only Breakup Day, but the days that follow as well. The analysis will continue, and we'll get into the off season and what have you. You know, what lies next for the Rangers. And in saying that, here are a few names heading into the offseason that should be top of the list. Got to figure things out with these guys. Do they stay? Do they go? In some cases, what kind of contracts? If you want them to stay, you keep them here in New York. What kind of contract do they get? Who's a part of this mix moving forward? So the key names: K'Andre Miller, restricted free agent with arbitration rights. Let's do a significant raise. He's a top 4 defenseman, has been for years. How much are you going to pay him? And what kind of deal are you going to give him? A couple of years? Walk him into unrestricted free agency? Are you going to give him that long-term contract? Do you believe in K'Andre Miller that much? I am so 50-50 on this guy. Right? I just go back and forth with K'Andre Miller. There are teams that will give you something for him. I'd explore the trade market. I want to know what I could get for K'Andre Miller. Can I fill other holes? Can I? With K'Andre Miller? I think there are teams out there that want this guy. 25 years old, been a regular in the NHL for 4 or 5 years already. But you're going to have to pay him. Rangers have seen him up close and personal his entire career. They know the warts. They also know the upside. He is the guy that that's the most difficult decision, I think, this offseason. You also have to make decisions on veterans. Chris Kreider. You're going to work with him on sending him somewhere else? He certainly looks like a guy that's playing his last games for the New York Rangers. Good on him. Couple assists, the other night in Sunrise. I'm curious to see what he's got to say on breakup day. I know Chris well. I was with the Rangers for quite a while. And I was there from Chris Kreider's the day he was drafted. That's when he and I first met each other, had a really good relationship all these years later. So I know him really well. And I know that he never wants to be front and center with his words. Yeah, he never wants it to be about him, his commentary, his opinion. He likes to keep that stuff to himself. Internal, private. It's just the way he is. He doesn't want to ruffle feathers. He doesn't want to cause trouble. That's not Chris Kreider. Here he is, 33 years old now. Longest tenured current New York Rangers player. It has been a hellacious year for him. Both on ice production, dealing with back issues, the trade rumors. How's he feel about it all? Is he going to blow the lid off what's wrong with this team? He's going to be asked. He's going to be asked Friday or Saturday about it. Is he going to give you the typical Chris Kreider non-answer answer? Or is he going to give something honest? Does he know he's done here in New York and he'll just lay it out there and he'll give it to you? I don't know. I don't think so. From what I know with Chris, I think he'll swallow it and he's not going to give you much, but we'll see. We'll see. He endured a lot this season. Fans kind of turn their backs on him. That's what fans do. They do. You may be angry at me right now. So not me. I wouldn't do that. I love the Rangers. Trust me. The players know that it can turn on a dime. Turn on a dime. Love you. Chris Kreider. Love you. He sucks. Get rid of him. They know. They know how it is with the fans. And that's how it is. Anyway, so that's Chris Kreider. The other guy, listen, you got to make a decision on Mika Zibanejad too. He's in or out. He's your right wing with JT Miller next year. And you buy into that. That's his best position. We'll work around it. We'll get a third line center. That's Mika's role. He's going to bounce back. He's got too much talent. He plays better with JT Miller. Okay. That's your plan. That's also the path of least resistance because we don't have to fight with him over a no trade clause, a no move clause, and all that. Or we sit him down in the exit meeting and say, hey, listen, we want to have a further discussion with you and your agent. Let's talk about your future. Because we're thinking about moving you. That's our preference. You going to stand in our way, or are you going to work with us? Right? So you got to make that decision. Who else we got here? I got a couple names right now. Zach Jones, of course, you got to make a decision on. Is he a part of this? Somehow, I don't think so. I think, I don't know what he'll get you, but he might be part of a trade somewhere. I just don't see Zach Jones coming back next season. That's not a knock on Zach Jones. I think it'll be better for both sides. I think it'll be good for him. Land somewhere, get an opportunity to be a regular NHL defenseman, a regular in the lineup. Here's another one to think about. Artemi Panarin. And another one, no move clause. He's your team MVP, was named team MVP today as voted by the media. Deservedly so. He's on the verge, or he's closing in on a 40-goal season. He's a point away from his fifth 90-point season with the New York Rangers. He's pretty much the one guy you could count on offensively all year long. So he's 33? One more season left on that contract. Hefty contract. Do you work with him on a trade? With the idea being, we're going to go heavy for, I'm just making this up, Mitch Marner. Because now Marner will be our next Artemi Panarin. Right? 100-point player, much better defensively. He's a much better two-way player than Artemi Panarin, though I would argue Panarin is the more skilled, talented offensive player. But just a thought. If you have an inkling and think that you might have a shot at Mitch Marner, who is 6 years younger than Artemi Panarin, better two-way player, going to cost you about the same amount of money, but now extended out for a while. I don't know. You think about it, right? You got to get a little bit younger. I know you don't want to trade your best player. In fact, the other option is, do the Rangers work on, an extension with Artemi Panarin? Or do they let him play out this season and see how they are, where they are? Does he become a candidate to be traded ahead of the deadline if the Rangers are having another down season? There's so many options there. But it's worth having the discussion. Artemi Panarin, is not locked into a role with the Rangers next year or into a roster spot with the Rangers next year. I don't think. I think you got to think about everything here. Igor Shesterkin's, the one guy is coming back, of the core. Now, you can assume that Panarin's probably coming back. Adam Fox is coming back. I mean, I get it. But it's at least worth having the conversation and then think about it in your head and discuss it if you're Chris Drury, right? And the other guy is Alexis Lafreniere, the other big name. Is he a part of your core moving forward? His contract extension kicks in next season, starts making some big bucks. Listen, I know there's no middle ground, it feels, with Alexis Lafreniere. Got those that will defend him no matter how much his production dropped or whatever. There's always a reason. There's always an excuse for the reason. And then there are those that will never accept Alexis Lafreniere. He'll never live up to the billing of being the top overall pick. There's no middle ground. I feel like I'm more the middle ground here. I see both arguments. I'd keep him. I know it wasn't a great year. It wasn't a great year across the board for this team. And I know he's got to work harder, be more diligent defensively, right? I know he's got to produce more. I think he will. Alexis Lafreniere, unless you're completely blown away or unless there's something that management and the coaches know behind the scenes about the kid that sets off, alarms, says, probably not, his future isn't here, or we don't want him. I don't think that's the case. In fact, I'm confident it's not the case because you wouldn't have signed him to the damn contract extension that you did back in November. So I don't think that's the case. I don't think there are alarms going off. I don't think Alexis Lafreniere is a problem, inside your locker room. But again, coaches know. The GM, I'm sure, knows more than I know. Lafreniere, I'd bring him back. But I'd also listen. Teams are going to be, just like teams are going to be interested in Keandre Miller, teams are going to be interested in Alexis Lafreniere. They're going to be calling you. Have the conversations. You have to. You missed the playoffs. You missed the cut. The cut may be 89 points. You missed the cut. You got to listen to everything. You got to consider everything. Doesn't mean that Lafreniere doesn't come back, Panarin doesn't come back. Heck, it doesn't mean that Mika Zibanejad, won't be here on opening night next year. He very well could be, and maybe you could argue likely will be, because it'd be so difficult to trade him. I still think Chris Drury's going to find a way to move him. But, we'll get more into that, down the road. In any case, a lot to be pissed off about. Here's what to look forward to in the final game of the season, Thursday night at the Garden against Tampa. Here's what I want to see. I don't care about win, loss. In fact, you could argue a loss is better, right? You want as good a playoff seeding, and you want as many balls in the lottery as possible to try and move up 10 spots. Cool, right? So who cares if you win or lose against Tampa on Thursday? Here's the one thing I do want. There are two things that I want. I want to see, a lot more of Gabe Perreault, Brennan Othman, Brett Berard. They should all be in the lineup. Juuso Parssinen, Matthew Robertson, Zach Jones. All these guys need to play. No reason. There was no reason to scratch Brett Berard just because Gabe Perreault and Brennan Othman came back in the lineup against the Panthers the other night. No reason. Why is Brett Berard not in the lineup? Play all the younger players, all the guys you have to make decisions on. Right? Every last game of experience that these guys can get is invaluable. And to be honest, Brett Berard's done nothing but hustle his rear end off for you. So there's no real reason not to have him in the lineup. Play them all. Play all the younger players, please. Okay? I don't care who comes out for them, and I don't care if they win or lose. So that's one thing I want to see. Here's the second thing I want to see, and it's a little offshoot of the first thing. I really want to see Brennan Othman score his first NHL goal. I would hate to see this guy who is all about being an offensive player. He's been nothing but a producer in, the OHL days, the American Hockey League. I mean, he's a first-round pick because he's a goal scorer. He's a point producer. He's an offensive player. The other stuff is great, too. I love his physicality. I love the edge that he brings, right? Nice little intensity, edge. Like all that with Brennan Othman. But guess what? At some point, you got to start putting the puck in the net, too. Because that's what made you a first-round draft pick. That's why you're here. And I get it. I know he's had some time in the top six. He's also spent time playing 8-9 minutes a night on the fourth line. I know it's hard, bouncing around like that, especially in the bottom six. But you got to find a way. He's had some great opportunities. He has not cashed in. I do not want to see him head into the summer with, 22 NHL games under his belt and not a single goal. Right now, he's only got 2 assists, too. I want to see him break through. I want him to get that monkey off his back. So here we go. Gonna have a great summer. Got that goal. Feel good. I know that there's no momentum or carryover, whether he scores a goal, whether he has 15 shots on goal against the Lightning or whatever. I know that there's no momentum carryover into what will happen next fall in training camp or next season for Brennan Othman. I'd like to see him get the goal. I'd like to see Perreault score too. But, for Perreault, it'll be 5 NHL games that he's played right out of college at the age of 19. Brennan Othman is a second-year pro, 22 years old. And he's played, 21, 22 games this season. I want to see him score. So that's what we got to look forward to. But even more so, we've got breakup day to look forward to. And then after that, we're going to reconvene next week. And man, are we going to have a lot to kind of sift through and everything. And we'll see. Maybe we have a coaching change by then too. Or we have a resolution. Maybe Chris Drury comes out this weekend or Friday or whenever and says, listen, we're going to put all speculation to rest. Peter Laviolette's our guy. Like it, not like it. And I think more people than not will hate it. At least you move on. We'll see. We'll see how long that drags out, the Laviolette situation as well. So a lot to look forward to. Remember to keep following us on X, at Jim Cerny, at Forever Blueshirts. And of course, head to the website, foreverblueshirts.com, for all things New York Rangers. Thanks for tuning in to the Rink Rap Podcast. This was the pissed off edition of the Rink Rap Podcast. Got to come up with a good title for next week. We'll see. I'm sure I'll be able to get a good quote to work off of from Breakup Day, right? I'll come up with something. So thanks to Johnny Brodzinski last week, Calvin DeHaan for the inspiration this week, and we'll see what we have in plan next week right here on Rink Rap. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next week. Cheers.